Aaron Gilmore.
Mr Speaker, if ever a time for the history of New Zealand to cometh the hour and cometh the man, this is the bill that we've got before us. We've heard a lot across this House about some of the issues and the powers that's been put before Minister Jerry Brownlee in this bill. And I think one of the interesting things we need to touch on, and I'll get to some of the dilemmas and slight errors that have put across the House. But Jerry Brownlee, post the 4th of September, was pointed out by some of the colleagues across the other side of the House as doing a great job. Mr Anderton sat there and told some of Mr Brownlee's officials they were doing a wonderful job post-September, and they were. That was the reason, and that shows you that Minister Brownlee has the ability to inspire individuals. We heard from one of the members across the House earlier that one of the key things about this bill and through recovery is the need to inspire leadership, and that's what Mr Brownlee does. He inspires leadership in his team, and this bill put in place some powers to make that happen. Mr Speaker, we heard just recently Mr Burns talk about some of the dilemmas that exist around community consultation. I just want to correct a couple of little errors that have been put forward. The bill actually does have a community forum, that was correctly pointed out, but the forum actually is at least 6 times a year, Mr Speaker, at least 6 times. Mr Speaker, we had heard from Ruth Dyson that she pointed out there was concerns about there were no consultation procedures with the public in any way. Well, that's actually not correct either, Mr Speaker, and I want to point that out. Clause 13, 17 and 16 all have various mechanisms of consultation with public on either the recovery strategies or the recovery plans, Mr Speaker, and they are good steps forward. They may not be the right steps forward, and the opposition may disagree with them, Mr Speaker, but those mechanisms do exist, and there are also reporting mechanisms to be put in place by the Minister on a quarterly basis so the public can actually see what is being undertaken in a transparent way. Mr Speaker, we heard from Mr Cosgrove about some of the issues and the problems that have occurred across Christchurch and the issues that have occurred around the issues when politicians become political. And Mr Speaker, I've actually sat and I've been in a number of meetings and I've sat with politicians both on our side and on the other side, and on a number of occasions things have gone very well, Mr Speaker, and that is a good thing given what we are grappling with at a time of rebuilding what is New Zealand's largest natural disaster. Mr Speaker, we have an opportunity, as has been pointed out, to rebuild my home city in a way which never had the opportunity to be done before. We've had a situation where we've had a number of people have been killed, and I actually want to make quick mention of 3 of those who were friends of mine while I've had the chance to do so. Betty Dixon was an 82-year-old from South Brighton. Betty Dixon had been involved in my local party organisation, and she was a wonderful lady and supporter of mine. Samuel Gibb was a young man in the CTV building who was a cameraman in the CTV building. I enjoyed having a cup of coffee once a month with Sam. He was a wonderful guy. I also want to talk about Patricia Williams. Patricia worked for Pine Gore Guinness. She was an accountant in that building, and her husband, Ben Williams, is a very good friend of mine. And I think, again, these are the people that we have actually seen floated across our newspapers, and they may just be names to some people. To me, they're people I knew personally, and they're people we've also seen people lost their homes, Mr Speaker. And this bill puts in place powers and opportunities so that New Zealand can collectively have control and have the ability to rebuild our city in the way we want, Mr Speaker. We allowed a significant amount of powers in this bill, and there are some concerns about that. We will go to Christchurch tomorrow and hear tonight submissions from a number of people that may point out some things that we can do a bit better in this bill. And I look forward to that, and I look forward to the comments that people may put forward to us. But, Mr Speaker, time is of the essence. We cannot put in place another overlay of long-winded community consultation because we have to rebuild our city as fast as possible. For me, in my area, I only live in what's called the no-flush zone, Mr Speaker, which means you cannot flush your toilet. Now, many people might find that amusing, but I can tell you what, it is not amusing, Mr Speaker. We have to rebuild our infrastructure so the 70,000 people that are also in the no-flush zone can actually live their lives back to normality. We have to get in a situation where our roads that we're driving along are no longer ski field roads or farm track roads, but they are ones that we can drive along at the normal situation, Mr Speaker. And that's all going to take time and effort and money. And those are things that this bill puts in place, the apparatus, to allow a backup situation where that can be put in place. A recovery strategy that overlays what we want to do. A recovery plan that might be at a community level, it might be at a social level, it might be at a thematic level in terms of issues around a particular group or organisation, Mr Speaker. These are good things. This is a good bill, and in time to come we will look back and say this was the right thing for us to do. Mr Speaker, I think we will look back and we'll find in 10 years' time We'll sit in this House, hopefully I'm sitting in this House in 10 years' time, Mr Speaker, we look back and say, we passed this bill for the right reasons, and we look forward to its passage through the rest of the House. Thank you.
The Honourable Jim Anderson.
Mr Speaker,